You look at an avoidant and you think they don't care. They sit there with that calm face, arms folded, detached, even cold. They give you silence when you crave words, distance when you want closeness. And you tell yourself, they must not need me. They must not want me. But let me tell you something that will shock you. Their silence is not strength. It's not indifference. It's a mask. And behind that mask is a desperation so raw, so consuming, that even they don't fully understand it. You see, the avoidant is not built on a foundation of indifference. They're built on a foundation of fear. They were wired, often in childhood, to believe that closeness is dangerous, that love is unpredictable, that trusting someone will only end in pain. So they learn to armor up. They learn to disconnect from their own need because needing was too dangerous. But here's the paradox: the need doesn't go away. It only gets buried. And what's buried grows into desperation. That's why, when you're around them, you feel the energy shift. They act calm, but you sense something boiling under the surface. They're not indifferent to you. They're terrified of how much they actually feel, because the avoidant isn't running away from you. They're running away from the weight of their own dependency. You represent something so powerful to them that they have to shut it down just to survive emotionally. Now, think about this. When someone doesn't care, they don't need to hide it. Indifference doesn't require armor. Indifference doesn't require silence. But when someone cares so much it threatens to expose their deepest fear of abandonment, they retreat. And that retreat, that coldness, is not proof of a lack of love. It's proof of just how much is at stake for them. Let's get psychological here. Human beings have two fundamental drives when it comes to relationships: the drive for connection and the drive for self-protection. For the avoidant, these drives are at war every single day. One side is pulling them toward you, desperate for closeness, desperate for the safety of your presence. The other side is screaming at them to back off, to protect themselves, to avoid the risk of being dependent on someone they cannot control. This isn't a lack of feeling. It's too much feeling. It's emotional intensity they can't regulate. And so they live in contradiction. They'll pull back while secretly hoping you'll still be there. They'll stay silent while replaying your words in their mind. They'll block you on social media, then stalk you through every possible channel. They'll push you away with one hand while clinging to you in their imagination with the other. This is not someone who doesn't care. This is someone so desperate, so afraid, that they would rather suffocate their own need than risk being fully seen in it. Here's where most people get it wrong. You interpret their avoidance as rejection. You tell yourself, if they really wanted me, they'd show it. If they really needed me, they'd say it. But that's applying your logic to their wound. The avoidant doesn't play by those rules. Their silence is not their truth. It's their survival mechanism. The truth is in the cracks, in the moments they slip, in the way they always find a way back into your orbit, even when they swore they were done. Now, why does this matter for you? Because once you understand the game they're playing, you stop taking their withdrawal personally. You stop doubting your own worth every time they go quiet. You stop chasing the mask and start recognizing the desperation beneath it. And when you do, you reclaim your power. You see them not as someone cold and distant, but as someone overwhelmed by their own hunger for you. And let's be honest here, isn't that what you felt all along? Haven't you noticed that when they push you away, it never feels clean? It never feels final. It feels heavy, conflicted, loaded. That's because their soul is screaming for you even while their mouth says nothing. The irony is this: the avoidant needs you more than anyone else ever could. Because you are the one who awakens what they've buried. You stir up emotions they've tried to kill off. You remind them of the connection they swore they didn't need. That's why they run from you, and that's why they can't stay away. So don't be fooled by the silence. Don't be deceived by the mask. The avoidant doesn't wear armor because they're strong. They wear armor because they're fragile. They don't pull away because they don't care. They pull away because the depth of their need for you terrifies them. And when you grasp that, you stop doubting, you stop chasing, and you start realizing the truth. You are not disposable to them. You are indispensable. Remember this, indifference is quiet, but desperation is silent too. And the avoidant silence is not the silence of someone who doesn't need you. It's the silence of someone who needs you so desperately, they'd rather choke on their need than risk exposing it. For most people, love is something they think of as a luxury. It's a bonus, a nice to have. You can build your career, chase your goals, enjoy your independence, and then, when you have time, you add love to the equation. That's how the secure mind works. But for the avoidant, love isn't a luxury. It's not an accessory to life. It is survival. It is oxygen. And that is why their behavior seems so contradictory. Because when survival is on the line, people do irrational things. You need to understand this. The avoidance world is not built on safety. It's built on control. They survive by controlling their emotions, controlling their distance, controlling how much they let in and how much they keep out. That control is their life raft. But then you show up. You don't just stir feelings. You awaken their dependency. You ignite a need they've spent their whole lives suppressing. And suddenly, their oxygen mask is gone. They are suffocating on their own emotions. Now here's the paradox. They need you more than they admit, but because that need feels like weakness to them, they will deny it. They'll act like they're fine without you. They'll bury themselves in work, distractions, or meaningless connections. But beneath it all, there's a panic they can't name. If I lose you, I lose my balance. I lose my anchor. I lose my survival. That's why, when you walk away, their world collapses. They don't show it on the outside because their pride won't allow it. But internally, they're gasping. Because without you, life feels ungrounded. That's not love as romance. That's love as survival. That's love as the one thing they can't afford to lose. Think about how powerful that is. Most of us crave love, but we can live without it for a season. The avoidant doesn't have that luxury. The moment they bond with you, they attach in ways they can't reverse. They may not show affection in the way you want, but the depth of their dependence is far greater than the surface reveals. They may look like they've moved on, but underneath, they're starving for the connection they had with you. And the reason it's so intense for them is because they don't know how to create that bond with just anyone. Here's something most people never realize: avoidants are selective, not because they're picky, but because once they attach, it's permanent. They can't afford to hand that level of need to just anyone. So when they let you in, when they let their walls crack even slightly, you become tied to their survival system. You are not just someone they like. You are someone they unconsciously depend on. This is why their pullback hurts so much. They are not rejecting you. They are testing if they can survive without you. They are testing if their system can still function when the oxygen line is cut. But the irony is, the more they test, the more they prove to themselves that they can't. They go silent, but the silence is loud in their own mind. They push you away, but the space becomes unbearable. They pretend they're fine, but the craving only grows stronger. And here's where it gets deep. If you've ever felt like you were carrying the emotional weight of the relationship, it's because you were. The avoidant leans on you without saying it. They take from your presence what they cannot generate on their own. And that's why losing you feels like death to them. Not a small inconvenience, not a disappointment, death, because they are losing the one person who makes them feel alive. So when you see them distance themselves, don't be fooled into thinking they don't care. Understand what's really happening. They're drowning in their need for you, and distance is the only way they know to manage the panic. But distance never fixes the hunger. It only amplifies it. And the longer they stay away, the more they realize that without you, they're not surviving, they're just existing. This is why so many avoidants eventually circle back. It's not about ego, not about pride, not even about romance. It's about survival. They can live without comfort. They can live without fun. But they cannot live without the one person who became oxygen to their system. And when that truth hits them, the act drops. The silence breaks. The walls they built for years begin to crack. Because survival always outweighs fear. And that's what you represent to the avoidant. You are not a luxury in their life. You are not an extra. You are survival. You are oxygen. And that is why they need you more desperately than they will ever let you see. When you look at the avoidant from the outside, it seems simple. They pull back. They stay quiet. They act cold. But if you could step inside their mind for even a single day, you'd see something completely different. You'd see a war between two forces that are tearing them apart. On one side, the desperate need for love, intimacy, connection. On the other, the overwhelming fear of losing control, of being hurt, of depending on someone too much. That war doesn't stop. It plays out in their head every single moment of every single day. This is what most people don't understand. Avoidants aren't at peace when they pull away. They're not sitting in silence feeling free and light. Their silence is not freedom. It's torment. Imagine wanting something with every fiber of your being, but feeling like you'll die if you let yourself have it. That's the inner reality of the avoidant. They're starving for closeness, but every time they move toward it, alarms go off inside their nervous system, screaming, "Danger! Danger! Run!" And so they run, they retreat, they go silent. But that silence is not the absence of thought, it's the overflow of it. They replay your conversations. They dissect your words. They overanalyze your actions. They wonder if they said too much, if they revealed too much, if you saw through their mask. And the more they think, the deeper their fear gets. Because while part of them is longing for you, the other part is terrified of how much power you hold over them. Think about this: when someone truly doesn't care, their mind is quiet. They don't analyze, they don't replay, they don't obsess. Indifference has no echo. But when someone is caught in an endless loop of thoughts about you, when they're quiet on the outside but noisy on the inside, that's not indifference. That's obsession. That's the mind in conflict. And with the avoidant, that conflict is constant. This is why their behavior feels so confusing. One day they're warm, open, vulnerable. The next day they're distant, cold, impossible to reach. You think, which one is the real them? But the truth is, both are real. They are split between two poles, and you're watching them swing from one extreme to the other. The warmth is their true desire, their hunger for connection. The coldness is their fear taking control. They live in that tug of war, and the rope is always burning their hands. Now here's the deeper truth: the avoidant doesn't just fear losing you, they fear losing themselves in you. They fear that if they surrender fully to what they feel, they won't know how to function anymore. That's why the silence becomes their weapon. It gives them a sense of control. It tricks them into thinking they're safe. But safety without connection is emptiness. And that's the cost they pay every time they retreat into their silence. And don't miss this: their silence doesn't mean they're not thinking of you. It means they're thinking of you too much. It means they don't know how to stop thinking of you. It means they are wrestling with you in their head at 2 a.m., pacing through scenarios, imagining what you're doing, and simultaneously dreading and longing for you to reach out. Silence is not the absence of emotion, it's the overflow of it. This is why you feel their energy even when they're not around. You feel the tension, the pull, the unfinished conversation hanging in the air, because energy doesn't lie. The war in their mind radiates outward, and you, because of your connection to them, pick it up. You sense it. You know deep down that something is unresolved. That's not your imagination. That's reality. So what do you do with this understanding? You stop interpreting their silence as rejection. You stop thinking, if they're quiet, it must mean I don't matter. No. Their silence often means the exact opposite. It means you matter too much. It means they can't regulate the weight of what they feel. It means they're running from themselves more than they're running from you. And here's the empowering part. Once you see their silence for what it is, you no longer let it control your worth. You realize that the war in their mind has nothing to do with your value. It has everything to do with their fear. And the moment you stop letting their silence define you, you reclaim your power in the dynamic. Because here's the truth, if you were irrelevant, they wouldn't need silence to manage their emotions. If you didn't matter, there would be no war. Their distance is not the absence of connection. It's the evidence of a connection so overwhelming, they can't handle it. So don't be fooled by the quiet. Don't confuse their retreat for freedom. It's not freedom. It's prison. They may look composed on the surface, but inside, they're breaking apart in the tension between wanting you and fearing what that want means. One of the biggest lies avoidants tell themselves is that they can walk away without consequence. They convince themselves, I'm independent. I don't need anyone. If I lose this connection, I'll be fine. And maybe they even look fine on the surface. They distract themselves, they dive into work, they start new hobbies, maybe even entertain new people. But here's the truth that shatters that illusion. Once an avoidant bonds with you, they can't unbond. They can't erase you from their nervous system. You become an imprint. You are wired into their psychology in a way they cannot undo. Think about it. Every human being is shaped by attachment. It's not optional. It's biological. It's in our wiring, our survival instinct. But for the avoidant, attachment is a paradox. They resist it because it terrifies them. Yet once it happens, it's permanent. You don't just become a memory to them, you become part of the structure of their inner world. That's why they struggle so much to let go, because they can't. They may try to bury it, but you're not gone. You're buried alive inside their psyche. And that's what makes you so unforgettable to them. Even when they're not speaking to you, you live in them. Even when they've pushed you away, they carry you like a shadow. You show up in their dreams, in the songs they hear, in the quiet moments they can't escape. They can't delete the imprint because it isn't in their phone, it's in their nervous system. And the nervous system doesn't lie. That's why their relationships after you often feel shallow, empty, unfulfilling. They can meet someone else, but it won't feel the same. Because no matter who they're with, the imprint of you lingers. And every new connection is unconsciously compared against the depth they felt with you. Even if they can't articulate it, they sense it. Why does this feel flat? Why doesn't this person move me the same way? It's because you awakened something in them that can't be replicated. Now here's what's fascinating. Avoidants believe they can compartmentalize. They think they can put people in boxes, lock those boxes away, and move forward untouched. But what they don't realize is that the box still sits in the room of their mind. And every time they walk into that room, when they're alone, when they're vulnerable, when they're not distracting themselves, the box rattles. That's you. You're still in there. And no matter how much they try to suppress it, the weight of your presence keeps surfacing. You see this when they circle back months, or even years later. You see this when they suddenly pop up out of nowhere, testing the waters, trying to gauge if the connection is still alive. That's not random. That's the imprint pulling them back. That's the bond they can't cut, no matter how hard they try. And the harder they try to run, the deeper the imprint digs in. This is why I say to you, don't mistake their silence as proof of detachment. Silence doesn't erase an imprint. Time doesn't erase an imprint. What you built with them exists on a level that doesn't vanish. And that's why you feel them too. That's why, even in their absence, you sense their energy lingering. Because attachment works both ways. The invisible cord doesn't snap just because one person pretends it isn't there. Here's the deeper layer for the avoidant. You represent not just love, but exposure. You've seen through the mask. You've touched parts of them they tried to keep hidden. That's why they can't escape you. Because they can't escape themselves. You've mirrored back to them who they really are under the armor. And once someone sees that, once someone has access to the truth behind the mask, no amount of running can undo it. That's why the imprint is so powerful. You didn't just touch their life, you touched their identity. And here's the empowering part for you. When you recognize this, you stop questioning your impact. You stop doubting if you mattered. You stop wondering if you were forgettable. Because the truth is, you're unforgettable. Not because of ego, not because you forced it, but because attachment doesn't operate on logic. Once it's there, it's there. And for the avoidant, it's irreversible. So the next time you feel discarded, remember, you're not gone from them. You are lodged in their nervous system. You are part of their story, whether they admit it or not. And while they may act indifferent, inside, they are haunted by the imprint of you. That's not weakness on your part. That's the reality of human connection. Here's what most people never realize: distance is not weakness. Distance is power. And when you step back from an avoidant, when you stop chasing, when you stop feeding the cycle of pursuit and retreat, something profound happens. Your absence becomes louder than your presence. Your silence starts to echo inside their mind. And suddenly, what they thought they could live without becomes the very thing they can't stop thinking about. This is the paradox of the avoidant. When you're near, they resist. They armor up. They put walls between you and them because they feel the intensity of the connection. But when you're gone, when that energy is removed, they can't escape the void you leave behind. That void becomes undeniable. It gnaws at them. It forces them to confront the very feelings they've tried to bury. And the more they try to ignore it, the louder it gets. Distance is not absence. It's a mirror. It reflects back to the avoidant just how dependent they've become on you. They thought they could push you away and be fine. They thought silence would make them stronger. But instead, silence exposes their dependency. Every day, without you becomes evidence of how deeply they've been tied to you. Every moment of your absence sharpens their awareness that what they lost is irreplaceable. And you need to understand the psychology behind this. Human beings adapt to what's consistent. When you're always available, when you're always giving, they start to normalize your presence. They may even take it for granted. But when that constant source of energy is removed, the brain reacts like it's been cut off from a vital supply. That's when craving kicks in. That's when desire intensifies. And that's when the avoidant starts to realize, I don't just want them, I need them. This is why distance is more powerful than words. You can argue, you can explain, you can beg, you can pour your heart out, but none of that forces an avoidant to face themselves. Distance does. Because distance is the one thing they can't argue with. They can deny your words, they can block out your voice, but they cannot escape the silence. Silence forces them to feel. Silence forces them to notice what's missing. And the truth is, your silence is not just the absence of communication. It's communication at its highest level. It says, I don't need to chase you. I don't need to prove myself. I know my value, and I'll let the emptiness speak for me. And that message penetrates deeper than any text or call ever could, because it flips the dynamic. Suddenly, the avoidant is not the one in control anymore. You are. And here's where it gets powerful. The avoidant has lived their whole life believing they control connection by withdrawing. That's their strategy. But when you stop running after them, when you let them sit in the silence, their strategy backfires. Instead of regaining control, they lose it. Instead of feeling free, they feel trapped by their own emptiness. They discover that distance doesn't liberate them. It exposes them. Think about this. The human brain is wired to notice loss more intensely than gain. Psychologists call it loss aversion. Losing something feels twice as painful as gaining something new feels good. That's why your absence carries so much weight. It's not just that they miss you. It's that the loss of you is unbearable compared to anything else they could gain. That's why they can't replace you. That's why distractions don't work, because the brain won't let them forget what it's lost. So if you've ever wondered, does my silence even matter? Does my distance even affect them? The answer is yes, far more than you think. In fact, it affects them more than your presence ever could, because presence allows them to resist. Absence forces them to surrender. And this is the part that should empower you. You don't need to beg for their attention. You don't need to prove your worth. You don't need to keep breaking yourself to bridge the gap. The most powerful move you can make is often the simplest one. Step back. Let them feel the weight of your absence. Let them wrestle with the silence. Let them confront the truth that without you, their world doesn't feel whole. Now, I'm not saying this to make you manipulative. I'm saying this to remind you of the power you already hold. Because too often, you forget. Too often, you believe their silence means you don't matter. But it's the opposite. Their silence plus your distance magnifies your significance in their life. It pushes them into the reality they've been avoiding. They need you more than they've admitted. And the beautiful thing about distance is this. It doesn't just shift them. It shifts you. It reminds you that you are not powerless. It reminds you that you don't have to chase love to prove your value. It reminds you that sometimes the strongest statement you can make is made in silence. When you finally realize how much power you hold in the dynamic with an avoidant, something inside you shifts. You begin to see what they have been trying to hide all along, that behind their detachment, their silences, and their vanishing acts, there's a desperate longing they can't escape. They may never admit it outright, but the avoidant needs you more than you can possibly imagine. And the irony is, the very thing they fear, dependence, is exactly what chains them to you at a level deeper than words. Think about this for a moment. Every avoidant has built a life around avoiding vulnerability. They've trained themselves to equate closeness with danger, to see intimacy as a trap. They armor themselves with independence, telling themselves they don't need anyone. But here's the truth. The human nervous system was never designed for isolation. Every one of us, no matter how avoidant, is biologically wired to attach. So when they find someone who touches them on a level they can't just escape from, it terrifies them, and it binds them. That's why their need for you is not casual. It's not shallow. It's not something they can replace with a distraction, a fling, or even another relationship. Because what they need from you isn't just your presence. It's the mirror you hold up to their soul. You awaken in them something they've spent their entire lives trying to bury. And once that door is opened, they cannot close it, no matter how hard they try. And here's where most people get it wrong. They think the avoidant doesn't care because they don't show it. They think the silence means indifference. But silence, in the avoidance world, is not indifference. It's survival. They shut down not because they don't feel, but because they feel too much. The emotions overwhelm them, so they retreat. But retreat does not mean release. Retreat means they carry those emotions with them, privately, secretly, and obsessively. You become the storm in their mind that they can't calm. Now, let me take this deeper. The avoidant needs you because you are the one person who represents both their greatest fear and their greatest desire. On one hand, you are the closeness they crave. On the other hand, you are the exposure they dread. And that paradox is why they can't let you go. You become the unfinished business of their soul. Even if they try to replace you, every replacement only magnifies the fact that you are not replaceable, because they weren't looking for another person. They were looking for relief from the intensity of what they feel for you. And relief never comes. This is why so many people are shocked when the avoidant comes back months or even years later. They think it's random. It's not random. It's biology and psychology colliding. The avoidant needs the person who cracked their armor. They need the one who made them feel alive and terrified all at once. And they will circle back because you are not just someone to them. You are the threshold between their old life of emotional numbness and the possibility of true connection. But let me challenge you here. If you don't understand this dynamic, you will misinterpret their actions. You will think their distance means rejection. You will think their silence means absence. You'll believe the illusion they're trying to sell to themselves, that they don't need you. And if you buy into that lie, you'll miss the deeper truth. Because the real truth is that their silence is screaming. Their detachment is attachment in disguise. Their pulling away is proof of how deeply they are pulled toward you. So what does this mean for you? It means you must stop measuring their need for you by how they perform in the moment. Look beneath the surface. See the battle between fear and desire playing out in them. Recognize that the more they resist, the more they reveal. Their very avoidance is proof of your significance in their inner world. And when you understand this, you stop chasing validation from their words because you can read the truth in their actions. Here's the final point I want you to hold on to. The avoidant doesn't need you in the way the secure person does. Their need is not expressed through steady affection, consistent presence, or reassuring words. Their need shows up in the chaos, through the push, the pull, the retreat, and the return. And it is precisely because they can't control how much they need you that they act like